Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I was meditating in my usual spot and something came across my mind. I live close by to a haunted forest. In fact, the most haunted forest in the whole of the UK. Some of you may know it as Screaming Woods or Daring Woods, located next to Pluckley in Kent, and it's one of the oldest Neolithic sites within our country. Some people have reported screams, apparitions, dark shadows following them, and some people have reported hearing footsteps behind them and whispers in the fog. Some people speculate that one of these apparitions might be a suicidal army colonel from the 18th century to be precise. Another one might be a highwayman who was beheaded in the forest. Black shadows lurk following people in the area of Pluckley. There is a restaurant now there, close to a church, and it is one that I always go to. And in fact, I read online that it was haunted. And I did, whilst having my meal a few times, look at the candle flickering. And you can do simple divination, basically, methods or spirit communication with a white candle. So I sat there, the candle was very still, very long flame, and I asked, in my head, if there is a spirit, please make the flame move violently. And all of a sudden the flame became even stronger and started dancing in the air. My partner looked at me and he was like, well, that's a bit unusual, there isn't a draft here in our corner. And I thought to myself, I could sense the coldness around us. It was in the older parts of the pub. And I thought, I sense a young spirit. There is a young person in that restaurant. The church close to it that's located is our local church. It's a lovely, lovely, lovely spot. Has a beautiful view out of it. But according to some people's stories and accounts, a lady haunts that space, and it's a woman from the Daring family as far as I'm concerned. It's what I've heard from people before. I haven't really investigated myself. I like to go to that church to light a candle and just to sit in a sacred space, because it is an old ancient church. So that area has been said to host about 15 different spirits, individuals. And I thought to myself, it would be interesting to have a look if anything significant happened in this area. And the first thing that did pop up was November the 1st. 1948, when 20 people from Maltman's area were found dead. People speculated before that there was potential cult or spiritual society working in these areas, in these woods, as people would often see lights and all sorts of apparitions. Also, looking at the significance of November the 1st, Samhain falls on the 31st. It's when a lot of societies, secret societies, spiritual societies know that the veil between the worlds is the thinnest. So, but they were mostly basically rumours. There was never really like 100% confirmation whether it was a cult. But unfortunately, out of these 20 people, 11 were children. And people reported that the bodies were piled up but to their surprise they were all woundless. Now, local authorities couldn't determine the cause of death, but the police concluded that it was most likely to be carbon monoxide poisoning. And then a good 20 years later almost, it's quite a heavy story, there was a private investigator looking at the case called Robert Collins, if I'm not mistaken. Now, he conducted quite a few interviews with a few local witnesses, and to his surprise he discovered a cult that was active within the village of Smarden, which is quite close to Pluckley. It's within the area. However, the private investigator mysteriously experienced a car crash, and unfortunately he passed away on impact. Now, people have been saying that that was done on purpose, you know, it could have been just coincidence. I don't really want to go into cult detail or anything else. It's just information that I basically heard around and found out. And then I found another incident which occurred in October 1998, so it's most recent, where 4 college students were investigating the forest and they went missing, never to be found. And I mean, that night when the 4 students went out, quite a few locals reported lights in the sky. I think they were saying it was like a spider's web. It was very odd and strange. But when you think about it, if that many lives were claimed in such an area, then perhaps it is no wonder that you sometimes hear the screams and pain of souls that remained there and were left behind. And it's quite unfortunate. As I said probably before, I'm not sure, but I don't know if I mentioned, I do go for walks with my partner in Daring Woods together, or the Screaming Woods as some people say. We go there for a walk quite often, and I always sort of have the same sense, as if, you know, you're like in a graveyard. It's like, it's very peaceful and very, very silent and very still. Now, I haven't really experienced any footsteps or seen any apparitions, only heard little rustles of leaves around us, around the path, or some, you know, a branch snap a few times. I didn't think that was anyone following us, and a lot of times what I thought that was probably some form of, you know, an animal, a roe or something, you know. And I think, you know, you see a lot of these videos on YouTube, people going ghost hunting, and I sometimes think, I've seen quite a few investigations where I have really disagreed with their methods. They kind of hype themselves up psychologically, and then they quickly get scared and fearful of, you know, just little noises in the dark, or rustles, or, you know, even some say sirens or whatnot. I've never really heard any sirens within the area. I have yet to hear that. But I sometimes do believe a lot of it is hyped up and not true. Again, a lot of times I can sense spirits around, and I'm so accustomed to it. And in that forest, all I sense is peace. There's tragedy, of course, but there's also peace. The souls are trying to rest. And a lot of times in these like haunted investigations, I think that people do forget that the souls, the energy, they always say, oh, it's the devil, oh, it's a demon, or anything else like that. But a lot of times it is just a spirit that's lost and confused, or even scared and threatened. And I think sometimes, what if you passed away and let's say 20 years later a bunch of young kids come over with their cameras and start calling you a demon and all sorts, and you've been miserable all this time? You might, you know, feel like you want to threaten someone, and that sort of, you know, negative energy, you know, you would turn sour and negative towards those people. So sometimes I think that it's important that even though you might be scared, to remain quite respectful of the spirits and the spaces around you. Because for those 20 people, those 20 bodies that were found in that forest, the other 2 that passed away beforehand, and the 4 missing, it might be their potentially resting space. Their resting, or space or place, you can say. So I think it is also important to be quite respectful if you do go for a walk in the Screaming Woods. And sometimes I feel in these sort of investigations that whenever you are respectful, that the spirits cooperate with you in a much more nicer manner, and sometimes you have better kind of evidence yields. And I just think that it's really important just to be respectful and not to, you know, assume that if it moves and you feel threatened or uneasy, then it must be a demon. It's not always that simple. So yes, I'd like to leave on that note. And I'd like to thank you for joining me in this video.